everyone. Welcome back to the Forward Thinking Podcast. It's Chrissy and Charlie here from CS2. And today we have another installment of MOPS in 10. And today we're going to be talking about team coalitions and why it's important to set them up, what they are, and why they're useful and why they're different than maybe just a normal team working on a project. So we came up with this idea because it's part of our product MOPS method, which is a method that we just announced at Lean Data's Ops Stars, and something you'll hear from us more and more on our content and on the podcast. So today we're going to be talking about the T in product, which is the team coalitions. And for some of you, we might be thinking, oh, I think I know what that is, but still listen in because I think we might be still talking about something a little bit different of how it's being used.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Charlie, I think it's good for you to kick it off and talk about, what is a team coalition and then how is that different on versus a normal team working together?
Okay. Yeah, there's really three differences. So the first one is it's a cross-functional team. So you're in MOPS, you're reporting to marketing, whatever, or revenue ops, or whatever reporting hierarchy. This is more cross-functional. So this could include you, someone from sales, someone from SDR, someone from sales ops, someone from customer success. Cross-functional team is the kind of the most obvious and easiest to understand difference.
Yeah.
The second one is the team is persistent. So it is a team that doesn't have a defined end. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go into these in a bit more detail, but a persistent team, you're not just a team for a few months, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about when it ends. The third difference is that it is an outcome-based team, not a project-based team. And that's a little bit more difficult to get your head around because that is more like this team is a persistent team trying to drive a kind of a collection of outcomes over time, as opposed to a project team, which is a team brought together for a fixed period of time to deliver on one project. So an example kind of outside of MOPS would be, there's the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously in their name, they've stated the outcome they're trying to get to: improve climate change and have clean air. That is never going to go away. They're always going to be focused on that. And they're going to have a team scattered around different people in different places, like different countries, different industries, different kind of like public service, private sector. They're all coming together as a coalition to focus on this problem, develop outcomes, and it's going to be persistent. It's not like we're the Climate and Clean Air Coalition for the next 3 months and we're done. That's versus bringing a team together to maybe build a solar farm where the goal is to build the farm and get that done and then move on, and you're not going to speak to each other again, right? Yeah. So a coalition will have projects within it, but its actual ultimate outcome isn't just to deliver those projects, it's to, reduce greenhouse gases or have better AQI levels in certain cities. So the way that would apply to B2B and marketing ops specifically is that it would be the difference between having a cross-functional team across marketing, sales, etc., who are all focused on optimizing your revenue engine to improve conversion rates and drive revenue or something like that, versus a team focusing on just doing one project to install a tool where maybe you need sales ops and marketing ops to get together.
Yeah. And that's always a kind of a last minute pulling, people dragging their feet kind of situation, because by the time you get people on that team, they're really just trying to get it done and then move on. Where a coalition, there's just a set group of activities that are working together toward one common goal. So
totally. Go ahead.
I don't know. I think when we talked about this, I think one thing that's good to know is you'll hear people say, oh, we have a sales and marketing interlock meeting where we give each other updates or talk about the progress of our things that we're doing within our team. And I think you mentioned there's still a difference between that, because that's just bringing people together to give an update.
Just an alignment meeting. Really.
Yeah, it's just an alignment meeting. And I think that is an important thing to take away of these coalitions are actually working toward a common goal. And for a lot of companies, depending on what your stage is, those goals are pretty clear and usually line up to your business objectives, which then means that they're going to be working on projects that are part of like a, your roadmap that would then build up to those business objectives. So it just, it's a bit more sustainable too, as well, because like that team is always doing as much, like focusing on projects that are always going to line up to that like main goal.
Totally. And the goal is stated, but how to get there isn't stated at the beginning. So a project team is like, you're going to work on this particular project, and then when you're done, you're done. A coalition is working on solving a problem, and no one in that coalition at the beginning particularly knows the solution yet. It's the team, it's the coalition's job to figure out how to approach that problem, and they should be empowered by leadership to focus on this problem, make decisions for the collective, and then really start driving home value as part of that coalition. It's kind of like the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, right? When they got together, they probably had ideas on what they were going to do, but as a team coalition, they worked on these different initiatives. It wasn't like, we're going to get together and just build this farm, right? The solar farm.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is too, I think some organizations are doing it to a certain extent, but it's always in like a desperate moment or or a dire moment, like, oh, we need to build this like tiger team to help us make sure that we're increasing pipeline because we have a pipeline problem. Well, a team coalition from the start can go in with the goal of like, okay, our goal is to increase like pipeline customer experience, something. You can have that goal, but it's just constantly moving toward that objective instead of this kind of like start stop, or let's wait till it's a huge problem to create a team around it and like see how long that lasts, or until we think it's not a problem anymore, which, and in most cases, it's constant. Like you can't just say like something's not a problem anymore, because the moment you take your eye off something, you might have a problem. So that's the great thing about a team coalition, is like you start off with these big goals and then you're always constantly moving toward that.
Yeah. And one great way to know if you've got a coalition versus something else is what is the team called? So if you've got a meeting that's like the sales and marketing interlock or something like that, then it doesn't have the goal of the team even in the name. Or you might have the goal, like a stated goal, and if you do, great. But if it's not in the name, then it's probably not a coalition, right?
Yeah.
If it's like, we're the customer experience optimization team, like coalition, then that is a coalition. You're all focusing on the customer experience and you're all trying to figure out how to improve it. But if you're, and I don't dislike interlocks in any way. I think that alignment meetings are important. Keeping teams up to date, like you created this thing in Salesforce, you need the sales ops team to know about it, or you created all these fields in Marketo, or you know what I mean? Like you need to have that kind of interlock, but it's different than a coalition, and you don't want to get them mixed up, because a coalition needs that singular purpose that is that persistent purpose that never goes away. Like you kind of said, customer experience improvements, is never done, right? You're always going to be optimizing the customer experience. So if you have a coalition around that coalition should be there for as long as that company is around, right? And as people join, people leave, that coalition, maybe the people changing it, but it's still a coalition.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this is definitely a new way of thinking about things, like organizationally, but also it's not too far away from what you might be doing. It's just putting like more, you might always be bringing these same people together and working on these individual projects, but instead, like you're just taking a step back and saying, okay, our team's going to do this, but all the project we work on is toward this common goal. And it's going to be a long lasting thing. It's not just going to be short. And everyone's just like craving that alignment. Like, how do we increase alignment? We have an alignment problem. And a lot of the time it's like, oh, let's create this like team that reports into each other. And that's how we're going to, create alignment. You can still have cross-functional teams, and team coalitions is a great response to that because you're increasing alignment, but still knowing that all these individual departments can still operate as normal and have the same reporting structures.
Yeah, totally. And the last thing I'll say is, what gets measured gets managed. And if the coalition should have measurable goals that they're working towards, because then they're really bought into doing the work, right? And the goal shouldn't just be delivering projects. The goal should be, if it is a customer experience goal, like how are you measuring the customer experience? Are you measuring like customer retention, conversion rates on your, between demo requests or PQLs, or like product, people like starting a free trial in your product to become a fully blown customer, things like that the team is focused on measuring, working towards. And similar to the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, they can measure AQI, they can measure global warming, right? Their goal is to move those numbers in the right way. So really think about it like that, and you'll have a team that's functioning at a higher level than just an interlock or alignment team.
Totally. Yeah. All right. Well, I hope you enjoy that episode of MOPS in 10, and, build those team coalitions. Let us know how it goes. All right. We'll see you next time.